Hey everybody. So it's a cold, snowy day here in Atlanta, and it's put me in the mood to do a cold, snowy scene. So today I'm going to show you from start to finish how I make a polar bear scene, and we're going to do some special effects at the end to make it look like a bit more like a painting. So it should be fun. So let's get to it. Okay, so here we are in Daz Studio, and I'm going to load the bear through Daz Studio. Normally I use Poser, but the bear is a special character I have who's designed to have fur using the Look at My Hair plugin for Daz Studio. As a result, I really only have him installed in Daz Studio. Although today I'm not going to be using the fur because we're going to make him. We're going to use at the end of this in post production. We're going to turn this into more of a Impressionist painting look, so the fur is not going to be necessary. Now to pose a character in Daz Studio, you just click on a body part and you get these circle things here. And that'll tell you which direction you can turn stuff in. And you can always go to the parameters section and do move these sliders here to do the same thing. Now you can also save preset poses, and that's all I'm going to do today is load a preset pose that I had saved off earlier because it takes an awfully long time to get the pose the way I want it to do, and it probably would be kind of a dull video if you sat here watching me tweak one little joint at a time. So I'm just going to load this preset one that I saved earlier. And here we have a good picture of a polar bear running at you. We'll make him look a little bit more fierce here. I believe I need a morph for that. We'll close his eyes just a little bit. Make it look like he's kind of squinting at us as he's running. And that's all we're going to do. We'll save that off. Actually, you can. Well, first I'll just save the scene. So if I need to come back in and fix it, so we'll save it up to the desktop here. And I already have a file. I'll just overwrite this. And then I'm going to export it. This will make it so we can import it into View. And to do that, you just export it to an OBJ file. And I already have one here. I don't know if I want to overwrite that. So I'll save it to polarbear2.obj. And we'll save that and just accept the defaults. And then that's all we need to do in Daz Studio. So we'll close that up. Okay, so here I've loaded View, and I'm just going to start by pulling that polar bear in. We'll just start by getting him right in the center of the frame. So we have him here under polarbear2.obj. Alright, he's awfully huge, so we'll zoom out to get a full view of him. And shrink him down a little bit. Pull him into the frame. And if you really want to set him exactly at the center of the scene, you could actually go up to this area here and click on this little thing that looks like a ruler and just set the X, Y, and Z as all zeros. That's probably going to put him just about right on our camera. If we really want him centered in the scene and to work around it as the center of the scene, and then you can just move the camera to adjust. Alright. You know what, I think I'm going to, since there's going to kind of be a lot of space on either side of him, let's change this to a vertical format. So we'll go to Photo Vertical. Oh, let's just do PC Vertical. I like that aspect ratio a little bit better. Now you see when we switch to that, it kind of zooms out. So let's change the camera to have a higher focal length. So normally I have a 70mm. Let's see what 150 looks like. That looks pretty good. Let's center him up here. Alright, he's not quite facing the camera, so we'll turn him to face the camera. And we'll do a quick preview render and make sure it looks okay. I think I want to turn him a little bit more. Alright, I think I like that angle there. Let's add some ground under him. And we'll do that by just clicking on the terrain button up here and throwing in a terrain. We'll flatten that out a pretty good deal. We don't need it to be too jagged. Alright, and then just make this scene a little bit more exciting. We'll put him on a hill, so we'll turn that landscape. Alright, so we'll set the landscape so that he's just barely touching it. Let's tilt it this way just a bit. And we can do another quick preview render here, see what it looks like. Well, it looks pretty good. I think I want to move him up just a bit. Not quite centered. Alright, that looks pretty good there. Now let's give this terrain some texture. And I could just pick snow. I mean, that'd be okay. It's a little dull. It's just white. So we'll do something a little bit different. We'll create a mixed texture. And for that, I'll pick this rocks and plants here, which is a nice dark, rocky looking color. And then I'm going to make it mixed. And for our second material, we'll load a material and we'll load snow. And now it's not going to mix, it's going to kind of mix them color wise, which doesn't look exactly like what we want. What we want to do is make it cover and then set the influence of the environment. And now you can see it sort of kind of covers it halfway here. And we'll set the distribution. We're going to use my favorite fractal, the grainy fractal here. And that's what it winds up looking like. So let's see how that looks in a preview render. See, now you got kind of these sort of spots showing through here of ground. I mean, if you want to make it a little bit more, you can always just adjust the mixture. And you don't have to do too much. We'll just go down a couple of percentage here. And there, that looks pretty good. Now it looks like he's running over some ground that's covered in snow, but not so deep that it's just plain old white. Let's see, what else should we do? Oh, let's add just a couple of trees in. We're not going to do too much to this, again, because I'm going to make it look like an Impressionist painting. And also we're going to put some snowstorm effects and fog and mist in post-production. So we'll just add a couple of trees in, though, to add some depth. And to do that, you just click here and hold, and that'll bring up your tree selector. And I'm going to select one of my favorite winter trees, which is the blue spruce. Yeah, make it a bit bigger and put it behind this guy. And then we'll just do one more. I'm just going to hold down the Alt button and drag, and that's going to create a copy. And I'll move this one back more. And just give it a spin so it doesn't look identical to its brother. And we'll give it a quick preview render. Okay, so that looks pretty good right there. Let's do a full screen preview just to make sure. So to go to full screen, I just click on the main camera view and click on this button here. And now I'll do a preview render. And that looks pretty good. I think that's all I need to do. So let's send it to a full-size render here. And we'll go pretty big, but we don't have to go huge because, again, when I put this through a filter in post-production, if we've upsized it a bit, it won't hurt it so much. So I'm going to go final, and I'm going to render to screen. And for the size, I'll just do about 12 megapixels. And we'll let it go. Okay, so the render didn't take very long, just 40 minutes. We're going to save that off. And to do that, we click on this little rainbow shaped thing here. And then the save button, which is that looks like a disk. And we'll put that on the desktop for now. polarbear.bmp is fine. Now this is also really important here that we need to save the depth map. And to do that, you click on this Z button here. Now you can't really see much here, but if I zoom out a bit, you'll see sort of a grayscale image. And in the Z depth map, the whatever's closer is a darker shade of gray, further back is a lighter shade of gray. And we're going to save this so we can use it in post-production to create some layers. So just click on the save button and go back to the desktop for that too. And it already named it polarbear_Z, so we'll save it off. And we're done with view for now. Okay, so here I am in GIMP, and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to create 3 different versions of this and this image and run it through Photomatix. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a well, first of all, I have just the plain old version. I'm just going to save that off. So we will export as, and we'll call that polarbear.jpg. And then I'm going to create an underexposed version, and to do that I just go to levels here and I drag up the dark colors to about this line right here, and the midtones I go up to between these two, and that creates our underexposed version. We'll save that off. Export as polar bear under, and then I just undo that and go back to colors and levels again. This time I'm going to drag the light colors down and create an overexposed version, and we'll save that off. And now we'll jump over to Photomatix. Okay, so here we are in Photomatix, and I'm going to start out by just clicking this button here that says Load Bracketed Photos, and Browse. And I'm going to pick our 3 polar bear photos. Here we have polar bear, over, and under. I'm just holding down the Control key and clicking each one, and that selects all 3. And I hit Open, and I hit OK here. And the EV spacing at +2 and -2 is just fine, so I'll leave it there. And since this is really just the same image, I don't need to worry about aligning it, and that's what this pre-processing options is mostly about, is aligning images. Not going to worry about any of those, just leave them blank and hit OK. Okay, so we'll close that right there. Now, so over here on the side, I have a whole set of presets. And I can just go down the list trying to look for one that looks pretty good. And I think I actually kind of like this one right here. Now I can go over these sliders here and maybe adjust a few things if I want. I probably don't need to do too much though for this one, because again, this is we're gonna see, or we're gonna wind up running this through some more post-production filters. Oh, this one's pretty good because I see the details over here on this side of the body as well as over on this side of the body. Got a little bit of purple in here, but that should be okay. There's not that much to do to this, and like I said, I could play with the sliders here to see if I could maybe get something a little bit better, but I'm going to leave it pretty much how it is. And since I like it that way, I'll just hit this process button, and there's some finishing touches you could do here, but we'll wind up going back into GIMP, and you can do all these same things like adjusting contrast and saturation, so you can do that all in GIMP. So we'll just close that up, and we'll save this file off. And now we'll head back to GIMP for some more post-production work. Okay, so I've loaded our Photomatix enhanced version of the polar bear back into GIMP, and I'm going to create a couple of layers here. And to do that, I'm going to go to the Z depth map that I had saved off from View. And that gives us that grayscale image where the darker stuff is closer, the lighter stuff is further away. And the first thing I had to do is just separate everything from the background. And to do that, I click Colors and Threshold. Now the threshold just drops everything to black and white based on its level of grayness. In this case, I'm just separating the sky, so I'm already there. I click OK, and I select all of this, copy it, and paste it into our main image. And then I'm going to solidify that layer, select by color and select black, delete the layer, and you can see here I've got everything highlighted now that's in the foreground. I'm just going to copy and paste, and then solidify that layer. So now I've got the sky separated from the everything else. I'm going to do one more. I'm going to separate the bear from everything else as best I can. So I'm going to undo a couple of things here, the threshold, and we'll do a new threshold, and this time we'll do it between the trees and the bear. And that gives us the bear right there. So select all, copy, paste. And I'm going to select by color, delete the layer, copy and paste again, and solidify that. And now you see here I've got the tree separated from the bear as well. So the next thing I do is we're going to put some fog in the background here. I don't like the blue sky. I want this to be a stormy scene. So we'll create a layer, and I'm going to put it between the sky and the midground. And I'm going to select an airbrush, and we'll pick a smoke brush. Now these brushes are third-party brushes, and I'll have links to these in the show notes. I'm just going to go back here and let's pick the dark color. Go back here and start dropping in some fog. Now one of the things I have here is I have the jitter turned on, and this set to 1. This will make it kind of spread out a bit more in a random pattern. And I'm just going over here, laying down some of this color. And that's good enough. I'm going to switch to white now and add some more in. I'm going to kind of stay away from these corners that are dark. I don't want to lighten them up too much. I want to get more lighter towards the center. And I think I'll create one more layer, and this will be between the trees and the bear. I'm going to do the same thing. Go in and spray in some dark color. It's not quite as necessary for this layer, but then do some light, and especially down towards the bottom. I want those trees to kind of disappear. Alright, that's enough for that. Let's have him, this bear, spraying up some snow. So we'll create another layer, and this will be just behind the bear, but in front of the mist. And I'll pick a, I think there's something like a splatter brush or something. That is the, catch that, splats. Okay, there we go. And for this, I'm going to just use a regular paintbrush. I'm also going to make sure I have the jitter turned on. In this case, I have it set up to 1.5. So it's going to kind of spray kind of at random. What I want to do, it's going to be denser towards the ground where the bear's feet are, and get looser as it gets up into the in the air, because it's going to be the lighter bits of snow are the ones that get kicked higher when he's running. And I think it's a bit bright, so let's go with the color here and the brightness, and we'll darken that just a bit. Don't want it to oh, there it goes. Right about there. I'm going to do one more layer, this time in front of the bear. I'm going to do the same thing, just more snow spraying up. Oops. I think there's a couple of splatter brushes. I think there's one more. This one's a bit denser maybe. Is that what I'm saying? Yeah. So I can come down here and do some more. Alright, and the same thing. This is a bit, that white's a bit too bright, so I can always darken it by going to the brightness and contrast and dropping it a few levels. And okay. Now we're also going to have this bear in a snowstorm, so let's create a snowstorm. This is pretty easy to do. You just create another layer, and this is going to be at the very front. And then we're going to pick our brush again, and this time I'm going to put the jitter up at about 3. And I think somewhere I have a snow brush. You could just do this with any kind of random spotted brush though. Let's see, that's pixel. There we go, snow. And you can see I'm just dropping in some snow. These probably a little bit too tiny. So let's undo that. Let's make it bigger. Let's go up to about 1,000. I'm just going to go and drop some snow in here. But we want to make it look like a storm. So what I'm going to do is go into the filters and the blur and do a motion blur. And we'll set the length for about 40-ish and the angle to about 130. And this will make it streaking downwards into the left. And click OK. Alright, that looks pretty good. Now it looks like that snow's kind of moving down. It's coming down real hard. It's subtle. However, when we run it through the filters in Topaz Impression, it might come out a bit more. Alright, so the last thing I'm going to do is actually increase the size of this. Right now we're at about 12 megapixels, and I want to up it so I can do some bigger prints. Now normally you would never increase the size of something like, say, a photograph that's at high quality. But since we're going to run it through Topaz Impression after this, it's going to hide any of the, or it's going to fix any of the flaws that increasing the size of the image puts in. So we'll scale the image and we'll do it up to 5200 by 3900 and let it go. Actually work. Okay, and now that we've increased the size, I'm just going to save it off. So I'm going to export this as, and we'll just call it Polar Bear. Alright, and now we'll go over to Topaz Impression. Alright, so I've loaded the image here in Polar Bear in Topaz Impression, and it's picked the first of one of the presets, which happens to be black and white. So over here you have various presets from which act as sort of starting points for this. So I'm going to go to my favorite set, which is the Impressionistic, and pick something that looks pretty good. I'll just pick this Impasto one here. Yeah, that looks pretty good right there, actually. But we'll go in and we'll adjust some of the brushes and stuff. And to do that, you just click on this thing here, and this goes to the specific parameters. And I'll pick a more detailed brush. How about that one right there? And maybe I like to have the paint volume all the way up. It's kind of a subtle difference, but I like it. Brush size will make a bit smaller. Increase the stroke length. You can just play around with this until you get something you like. So what else can we do? Oh, I like to put a texture on here. It makes it look like it was painted on linen or canvas. I like canvas 3 here. I'd put the strength all the way up. Now that looks a little bit too rough, and that's just because the size is really large, so decrease the size a bit more. And now, I don't know if ethically it's a good idea to try to fool people into thinking that this is an actual oil painting. So, but when I upload it, I'm going to be sure to say in the description that this was digitally created. But it's sort of fun to make it kind of look like it was painted on a real canvas. And I'll save this off. Okay, so here I've logged into my Fine Art America account because the last thing I'm going to do is show you not just how to make this art, but how to get it up there on the internet for sale. So I have an account here at Fine Art America, and as you see, I've uploaded, I have a whole bunch of sub-galleries to my main gallery. But I'm going to click on the images here, and this actually gives you my images, all of them. I mean, there's pages after page of them. And I'm going to click on this upload image button here, and we'll select our file, which was on the desktop, and we called it Polar Bear Impression. We'll upload that image. Okay, so our image is finished uploading here, and we'll give it a title. I would suggest you give it a title that is search engine friendly. So Polar Bear Attack. You see, I've entered this before. You don't want to enter something like something. You might have like a good poetic title for this that you like, but don't enter that here. Just put that somewhere in the description, because here, this is one of the most important things for bringing traffic in is to have something that somebody would search for if they were looking for this kind of work. So keywords are also pretty important. I'm only going to put in polar bear, bear, winter, a couple of for now. One thing you should always include in your keywords, though, is your name. I'll come back later, though, and probably get pretty much closer to this 500 character limit. Something else that you can also, just a quick tip, spaces after the commas don't matter on Fine Art America, so if you want to save a few characters that way, you can do that. Descriptions are also very important. Descriptions are what Google will pick up on for search engine stuff, so you want to make a description that's keyword rich, as well as something that gives your viewers a reason to empathize with you about why you made this art. You might want to tell a story about it, and take advantage of this description field. You can enter quite a lot in here. Now I'm going to come back in later and enter something more descriptive than this, but a digitally created image of a polar bear. But anyway, that's what I'm going to do for now. Display options. You can put this watermark thing on here, but never do that. That just actually drives away buyers. Artists will do that to sort of prevent their art from being stolen online, but there's really nothing you can do. If somebody really wants to steal your art online, they'll find a way. So I just leave the watermark off. This is if you're doing adult-oriented type art. You don't need to worry about it for a polar bear. So we'll leave it as work-safe viewing. These are my sub-galleries here, and I'll just drop this one in wildlife. You can join groups on Fine Art America and submit your art to these groups, and I'm not going to do it right now. I might come back in later, though, and submit some. Since this is digital art, there's no originals, but if this was an oil painting or something, I could sell an original here. Now, this is the most important part. This is your markup on the various print sizes, and you can see here, because I increased it to that 5200 by 3900, I can sell a print that's 60 by 45. Anyway, these are ones that I've saved some defaults, but these are the markups I get on each of these sizes when they sell. And I can sell greeting cards and throw pillows and duvet covers, although for a duvet cover you need a pretty large image. Phone cases. This is something else I recommend too if you do images that might make good illustrations, and a polar bear could make a pretty good illustration. You can sign up for this image licensing program, and this will allow somebody to buy the high resolution version of your image, or a certain resolution, and use it on their book cover, their album cover, or on cups, whatever they want to use it as. But it's a nice little program. And if you want to send it out on Facebook and Twitter to do some marketing, you could also select to do that here. I generally tend to do it on my own because I'm usually done with an artwork at a time. In this case, it's just after midnight. That's not really a good time to post it on social networks for attracting views. So I'll come back in later and post, maybe at 8 p.m. tomorrow night, I'll post this work up. So with that, you click submit. And just like that, it's up for sale. I mean, somebody could come in and buy it, and a few months later, I think it's about a month later, maybe 2 months later, I'll get a commission. So with that, we're done. So if you like this video and you'd like to see more, or read some of my articles, or even check out some of my art, you can find me on my blog at www.introvertartist.com. And here I post articles on how to make art, how to sell it online, tools that you can use. I have links to my gallery, as well as you can subscribe to my newsletter here. And my newsletter is something I send out every Wednesday with news on my latest artworks, articles, videos, promotions, discounts, and I even throw in a free computer wallpaper every week. So thanks everybody, and good night.